What is up, guys? It is the Sound Alchemist, and today we're back with another 40 Facts video on the brand spanking new lore for the Tau Empire. So we've done a few videos on speculating what the startide nexus was, which was hinted in the 8th edition Tau Codex, or at least the spoilers. And then now that this Tau Codex has been out officially for quite some time, I wanted to talk about the new lore that can be found in the book, that lore surrounding the 4th and the 5th sphere expansion. So if you guys don't know, the Tau usually expand their empire in what is called spheres. So the Tau aren't able to use warp travel, so think of their empire as getting, basically growing throughout like a circle, a sphere, whatever. So basically the Tau home planet, during the first sphere of expansion, they basically colonized the surrounding area around their home planet. Second sphere, that area grew bigger. Third sphere, bigger, etc. However, some weird stuff happened in the fourth sphere expansion, which we'll get into later on. But basically, during the end of the third sphere expansion, the Tau brought many worlds into the greater good, if you know what I mean. However, it did end with great destruction. For example, the battle at Mugoloth Bay was a fierce battle that pit the Tau against the forces of the Imperium. Now this battle was so crazy that even Farsight had to step in. But if you guys want to get the whole 40 facts on this, we do have, I think, like a 2-part lore on this. So go over there and check out our 40 facts on the battle for Mugoloth Bay. It is really crazy, and it's really awesome because it's like Tau against Imperial Guard, Skitarii, and Space Marines. Even the assassins play a part in it. So I definitely recommend it, guys. Go check it out. However, like I said, during the end of the Third Sphere expansion, the Tau were basically besieged by the Imperium of Man. So anyways, the Tau forces were isolated, all thanks to the Skitarii. So to the east of the Tau space during this Third Sphere, they had a bunch of barren worlds. These were planets that had been ravaged by the Tyranids. To their west, they had the Necron dynasty, the Sautek dynasty, that they had to compete against. And then to make matters even worse, not just for the Tau, but for the greater sentience of the beings in this galaxy, the Great Rift opened up. Now, the Great Rift is basically a huge warp tear that cut through the galaxy in half, essentially. So this made it seem like the Tau could no longer expand their territory. They were being besieged on all sides by basically the horrors of the galaxy, Necron's Imperium, freaking warp and whatnot. So the ethereals and then the scientists of the Tau Empire thought about maybe sending out cryo ships that would awaken hundreds of years later and then have those Tau recolonate in that section of space. They even thought about allying with the Imperium of Man to have safe passage through the Imperial territory. However, these options are pretty much, too reckless, too risky, because who knows what would happen to those cryo ships since everybody's essentially asleep in there. They could just get blown up or something. And the humans of the Imperium, the Tau already see them as too barbaric. They're always out for blood, always out to fight. So the Ethereals had no choice but to utilize a brand new technology. Now this technology was a fusion of Imperial tech and even Kroot technology, which is kind of surprising. However, this is what they came up with, and they called it the AL-38 Slipstream module. So essentially, it is a prototype device that would allow deep space craft to create a bubble of antimatter and thus literally tear reality apart in order to go from point A to point B in a matter of seconds. So this is essentially, I guess, their own version of using warp travel, because they can, break apart the reality to get to where they need to. So, because of this, Commander Surestrike was the first commander to lead their forces of the Tau across the huge vast of space with this new technology. So on his mark, countless vessels fired their Slipstream modules, but These massive tears in reality ended up opening up a ragged wound in the material realm, and in a flash of bright, vivid colors, the entire fleet was consumed, leaving nothing but a vortex of shimmering colors behind. This was a huge, tremendous loss for the Tau. Morale was literally cut in half. However, the Ethereals quickly kind of took control of all the visual feeds, and it made it seem like nothing really happened to this fleet. But in reality, this was a huge, huge failure. They tried to send recon drones to find their fleet, but nothing happened. And meanwhile that they're trying to locate it, the Tau Empire is being attacked on all fronts. They've got freaking Death Guard coming in there, the Necrons, Tyranids, basically you name it, the Tau are fighting. Now, it seemed that because of this mistake that they did, basically firing all their Slipstream modules, it almost seemed like it made the enemies of the Tau more aggressive towards them. But, however, thanks to the might of the Tau army and the sacrifice of the Firecast warriors, the Tau held their ground against all these enemies. So because of this great failure, the Ethereals scrapped the project and the Slipstream devices were terminated. They would never allow something like this to happen ever again. Then, out of nowhere, a single recon drone picked up a signal. So the Tau then found a wormhole right next to the drone, where there wasn't one before. So they decrypted the signal and they found out that the fourth sphere expansion was alive. They were alive and they were apparently now in the northernmost sector of Imperial space, known as the Chalnath Expanse. So after a few test results and whatnot, they found out that this wormhole was indeed the doorway to this Chalnath Expanse, and so the Tau ended up building defensive positions around it. This wormhole would be known as the startide nexus. So then, now that they were building defensive positions around it, the Tau really needed to establish a good amount of territory near the wormhole. So because of this, they sent out entire populations to be relocated into these star forts. Eventually, it became so heavily fortified that it rivaled that of the Tau homeworld. Now that's really crazy. I mean, just thinking about how a defensive, how much raw materials needed and all that. It's unfathomable, guys. But anyway, the next step for the Tau was to traverse this wormhole and reunite with Surestrike's force. So for this task, the Ethereals awakened the infamous Commander Shadowsun. So after her awakening from stasis, they confirmed that the Nexus was indeed safe to travel through. And so they needed to expand their empire, and thus the fifth sphere expansion began. Now, nobody could say how long this journey into the wormhole lasted because they were put in stasis, but the fifth sphere emerged. Now, Shadowsun and the high-ranking Ethereals that traversed this wormhole finally met with Commander Surestrike. So they spoke alone for quite some time, and what they found out was that Surestrike's fleet had been assaulted by an unknown enemy, one whose form was bizarre and unnatural. Now his ships were torn apart, their occupants butchered, but no one was sure for how long this slaughter really did take place for. But they were saved. Some hideous sentience pulled them out of this wormhole. Why? Nobody can know for certain, but the survivors of the Tau were irrevocably scarred for life. They could not look into the fellow Tau's eyes, and they were hatred and terrified for the alien auxiliaries that came alongside Shadowsun and her forces. Now, I have no idea what could have happened in this wormhole, but whatever did happen, it's just crazy. These Tau are literally scarred. They can't really function that well. They're terrified and they're scared of the Kroot and the Vespid and all these other alien auxiliaries. I don't know, man. This is crazy. But let's continue on with the lore. So the progression of Tau space continued nonetheless. However, the fourth sphere were ruthless Tau. They killed indiscriminately, even killing those who had already surrendered. They even retaliated against their own alien auxiliaries. And this was so bad that it led to a bloody uprising from the Kroot. Now eventually, it was decreed that no fourth sphere Tau could be in the same contingents as Tau alien auxiliaries, because that literally just ended in bloodshed. Now, despite all these hardships, despite all these incidents that were going on, the Tau did continue to expand at a formidable pace. Now, they ended up obtaining 3 worlds in this new Chownath expanse in a matter of months, which is unheard of. This is like, even though all these negative things were plaguing the Tau, they still managed to take worlds, terraform them, and have populations living there. Now the Tau Empire is now ready to continue bringing the greater good to the galaxy, and to defend itself from all those who would oppose them. And with that being said, that pretty much concludes the new lore for the Tau 4th and 5th sphere expansions. So let's kind of dissect this and break it down. So, after the battle for Mugoloth Bay against the Skitarii, the Imperial Guard, and the Space Marines, the Tau Empire was pretty much kind of stuck. They couldn't really progress forward because of where they were in their location of space. Without warp travel, or without like a dimensional gate or something to kind of get them going to where they need to, they were pretty much sitting ducks. So because of this, they got attacked, and then finally they came with their new technology, the Slipstream module. Now this appears to tear reality apart, maybe being a doorway into the warp and then them getting spat out somewhere entirely unknown. And that seems like that's what happened with the Tau Empire, or with that 4th sphere expansion, because these Tau were severely aged, and on top of that they've seen some pretty crazy stuff in there. Now it leads me to believe that this was Zechian demons that they were fighting up against. However, I'm not exactly sure what it could be, but maybe these demons were taking the form of the alien auxiliaries, which caused the 4th sphere Tau to go crazy and basically have a hatred for them. Now the other thing is that with this new lore being put out, we once again have Commander Shadowsun at the forefront of the 5th sphere expansion, and they've gotten colonies already built. It seems like this startide nexus is helping them, because now they've got this northern empire building, and they'll just build more spheres from that area. So you'll see the Tau greatly basically expand their greater good philosophy throughout the races in this sector. I'm really interested to see what happens next with this new lore. I also want to know what's going on with Commander Farsight. Hopefully they do like an expansion or something, but that won't be for a while because there's still a few more codices that need to come out. Orcs. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought about this new lore in the Tau Codex. Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys really not think much of it? And what do you think they encountered within this this opening, this tear in the galaxy? And yeah, I mean, this was a pretty cool read. I really enjoyed reading it, so much so that I read the entire Tau Codex that night. But anyway, that's all I've got for you guys. As always, I'm the Sound Alchemist. Leave your comments down below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we give you guys a video each and every day. So again, this is the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.